1 in 3 people in the U.S. will be scammed by the end of this year, which is why it's no surprise that fraud is the fastest growing crime category. Hi, everyone. I'm Randy Warren, and we're going to talk about that right now on the Well Said podcast with Manatee County Sheriff Rick Wells.
Well, Randy, thanks once again for hosting our new podcast. We do have Sergeant Jason Farrier with us today, who is a sergeant over our fraud unit. So fraud is a crime stat that you never see. It's not something that is going to be published. You know, it's not one of the main categories under UCR, but it's a huge issue for citizens of Manatee County, and it's a crime that we take very seriously. And that's why we have Jason here today, because every single day, and I guarantee you that anyone that's listening to this podcast today has had a text or a phone call from some lowlife, right, scammer, telling them that they have an outstanding warrant or they have a jury violation because they didn't show up for jury duty, and if you pay X amount of dollars right now, you know, we can get you out of this. So we thought it was very important for us to discuss this today, to get the word out, because no matter what we do with all the social media platforms and the messages that we have sent out and the talks that we do in the county to different groups, we just don't think that, you know, people truly understand. And here's the problem that I have too, is that these criminals prey upon our senior citizens. And, you know, we have a story, and maybe Jason can get into it later, where we actually had a detective that was at a bank. You remember that?
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
And just happened to be there when one of these scams was taking place, and he was able to intercept and actually help this victim. So Jason's a big part of what we do, and I probably talk to Jason, you know, more than any other sergeant at times, just because of the job that he does, and the detectives that we have are awesome, and they really take this to heart, and it's a big deal for them when they can make an arrest on one of these cases. So we'll let Jason go over what his unit is responsible for and how they go about trying to catch these criminals.
Yeah, so I run the fraud unit. We have four fraud detectives, and we cover all the type of fraud that you can think of when it comes to credit card fraud, check fraud, crypto scams. Big thing lately is the courier scams. So we cover all that. Basically, the cases get written up, and they come up to me, and I read the reports and then assign them to a detective. So we got 4 fraud detectives. I mean, so far this year we've had 576 cases. You know, some of those, not all those cases are worked by us. We review those, and some we refer out to like the FBI and different resources, because they have different avenues of investigations and things like that. But yeah, we just we review the cases and just follow the money is essentially what we do.
And pretty safe to say, there's a new scam being invented just about every minute.
Correct. Yeah.
And you guys are doing your best to be educated on it, and then we here throughout the rest of the sheriff's office are trying to get the word out to people to be like, hey, there's another scam out there, and this is how it works.
Yeah. As we combat one type of fraud, the scammers they have a quick way to turn it around and just come up with something different. The biggest key is the same thing that's going to be in common, is the separating the victim from their money is what it comes down to. And they use emotion tactics, fear, sense of urgency, and things like that to get you to act quickly and not think things through and make these decisions.
So Jason, what's one of the common themes that we have found to be true with the scammers themselves, as far as where they're located and how they go about doing their job of really trying to put fear into the victim to get money to them quickly? Have you noticed that more of these criminals are located in different countries?
Yeah, the scammers are always in different countries. I mean, there's various layers to scams. So the scammers from outside of the country are going to use people. They're going to scam people within the U.S. and then they're going to get them to be a part of their scam. So they're going to get people, they're going to scam them, and then they're going to use them to funnel money through their accounts. And now although they're still suspects in the same, but they're being used as well from the main scammer. So we rarely ever get the main guy behind the operation, but we do get the people that are here in the U.S. that are involved, and a lot of times they do have knowledge of what their part is in here. So we try to attack them and find them and identify them as much as we can.
Here's one of the scams that aggravates me the most, Randy. It's when these scammers will call a victim and they will use an identity of a law enforcement officer. They will go onto the website. They will somehow obtain a name of a deputy or a police officer that is currently at this agency, and they will use that name to try to put fear into whoever they're talking to, that, hey, I'm Deputy so-and-so, there's a warrant for your arrest. If you don't want me to come pick you up and put you in jail, you need to send $500 or whatever to this account immediately. And we've had that a lot, Jason.
Yeah, absolutely. And the key thing about that is they're getting this information from public websites. So they go to the Manatee County Sheriff's Office website, and they can see who works for the Manatee County Sheriff's Office. That's how they get the names, right? So one of the big things is with the jury duty, the ticket scams, or you got a citation, you got a summons, you got to go to court. You actually got a ticket, you know what I mean? So your information is in this public website. So they're getting information from the public websites. They're like, oh, I know this person received a ticket, so let me get their phone number, call them, and then they have a real victim. So when you get that phone call from someone, they're saying that you didn't pay your ticket. Well, they're acting on real information. They're like, well, I did get pulled over. Maybe I didn't pay. I thought I did. Maybe it didn't go through.
Right.
And then they get them to. That's where they use the sense of urgency. That they get like, hey, if you don't pay now, you're going to be arrested, $500, and they don't want their licenses to get suspended. They don't want to get arrested, so they just pay the money and get done with it. But a lot of times it doesn't end there, though. Is that as soon as you pay that money, now the scammer's got you. They're going to call you right back and say, I need more. And then it's never ending.
And as they make it look more and more believable, and they want to trust law enforcement, they want to trust the courts, and so then that gets them in that spot where they're like, hey, I think this is real.
Correct.
So here's the important thing. If our message is not heard by anyone, if no one is really paying attention, just listen to this. We don't call you to tell you we're coming to pick you up.
No.
Never.
And we don't call you to tell you that you need to pay us a fee before we come pick you up. We're just going to come pick you up for the warrant. The only times we ever call anyone are very, very low-end misdemeanor type warrants, where we let this person know that they have a misdemeanor warrant, and if they just want to go to the jail, right, and get it resolved quickly so you can get out. We're just giving you a heads up.
And you've probably been notified by your attorney. Somebody has reached out to you. You know, okay, I got a warrant for my arrest.
But we're not going to call you and tell you that you need to pay us X amount of dollars.
Or use gift cards.
Yeah,
yes.
money will never be involved. And it's just you want to call your local law enforcement agencies, wherever that may be, and then call the courthouse. Get the information that whatever tactic the scammer is using as far as what information they're coming at you with. Just call the law enforcement agency, the courthouse, the clerk of the court, whatever you need to do to verify this information, and don't go off of information or phone numbers that they provide you. There are a lot of people there's phone numbers in the messages and they call that phone number. Well, you're just calling the scammer back, you know. But another thing to put on that though is the sheriff's office phone number. I mean, phone numbers can be spoofed. So the scammers you're getting a phone call and the number for the sheriff's office or the courthouse or whatever it may be is coming up on your caller ID. So you think it's legit. So you immediately have that when you get a phone call that says the sheriff's office calling, Manatee County Sheriff's Office is calling you, you're going to have that immediate gut, like, oh, what's going on? You know what I mean? So you're already in a state of fear just by simply seeing the Manatee County Sheriff's Office pop up on your phone, and you're not expecting that. You think you're in trouble, whatever the case is, you know. So then you pick up the phone, and they're immediately talking about a warrant and money, and so it just takes it from there, and it spirals out of control, and then.
And we see that phone spoofing all the time. And
all day.
That is what I think people fall for because they want to believe it.
Correct.
So right from the get-go, it looks real. What are some of the categories? So we want to kind of give people as much. There's so much to cover here. The categories of what we can get into. We've got ones that are more finance, banking. We look at romance. We look at tolls. I just had somebody stop in the hallway this morning on the way in here, and was talking about a toll scam.
Yeah. So they're sending out, and those are so easy too, because I mean you're talking about a couple bucks or $7 here, So they're sending out these text messages to our phones, and we click on that link, and some people, I mean, a lot of people are different situations, financial situations, but you see a bill, a lot of people want to take care of their bills right away. They don't want anything outstanding, so they see on it, they just click on the link and, just let me pay it real quick and get it over with. So they just pay it. That's just money that the scammer is getting, you know what I mean? And not to mention that you pay it, now your information is compromised. As soon as you click on that link, they've got access to different forms of your identity, and they have access to your information. So,
and Sheriff, you talked about this at the beginning of the show. Elderly, and this is where it makes all of us angry. I mean, I get mad every time I have to write a press release on one of these, and we're talking about some senior citizen, someone who's worked so hard their entire life, their life savings potentially gone. Tens of thousands of dollars, and I know, Jason, you've got cases where some of it is just mind-blowing that they fell for it. And we're doing our best to try to educate people on it, but, I mean, somewhere along the line, we got to get people involved, right? You know, family members or somebody to be able to help them out, and sometimes that's not possible, I guess.
Yeah, sometimes it isn't possible. Just to wonder, and you said we definitely want to get family involved. We get anybody that you can get involved with the elderly community and try to get them up to date on this stuff as far as what they need to do to prevent things like this. But we come into a lot of cases that we can't force people to cooperate, in a sense. Like a lot of people that they get involved with these romance scams, and they don't really have the family and to support them, and they get involved with these romance scams, and they truly believe that this person on the other side of the phone is real. You know what I mean? And they want that because they don't have a companion or anybody in their lives. They don't have very much family, so they want this person to be real. So I've had communication with people and try to outline every step of different scams and explain to them how they're being scammed, and they don't want to believe me. You know what I mean? They end up just sending their money continuously. They're like, I'm not listening to you. I'm going to continue to send it.
How does that work? They come up with a story and say, hey, I've been talking to you, and they're getting to know them, and oh, by the way, I need money?
Yeah, so I mean, they develop a relationship with them online. You know what I mean? They text over a period of time. Sometimes it's quick before they get right into it and get the money, but a lot of times they let it grow. They let that communication grow. And if the communication is documented, you could see the breakup in certain communication and the language barriers and things like that. But they develop the trust, you know what I mean? And then they develop this relationship, and then it immediately gets into some sort of needing money for something, whether it's I need to get some work done on my house, or I need my daughter to be able to fly and come visit me, or whatever the case is. It's a different example every day, but they develop that relationship, get that trust, and then they get to the money.
You know, we've had several cases where a family did get involved, and it may have been after, you know, the senior had already sent $100,000 to this scammer. By the time we get involved and start working that case, we're able to save them from sending any more money to this moron. But they're already out $100,000. Okay, and that's a lot of money. And if you're a senior and you're living on a fixed income, a lot of times they're so devastated. They don't even want to talk to us.
Right.
They don't want to, they don't want their family to know they were scammed. They don't want us to know they were scammed. And even though we want to help them, they shut down. They're so ashamed because they're trusting. And, we spend a lot of time in mobile home communities throughout the Manatee County area, and our crime prevention deputies are in there trying to educate and make sure that, we're getting that word out. But, some still fall for these scammers, and it's heartbreaking for us because we know that we can't do anything to get that money back. Yeah, we've saved them from spending more money, but still, I don't know about you, man, $100,000, that's going to put an end to a lot of the retirement dreams that we've had, right?
It is. It's life-changing, and I know, Jason, you and your team are doing everything they can to recover the money. I mean, we would at least like to put the bad guys in jail, but if we can recover some funds, and we don't stop, right? I mean, we're doing what we can to try to get some money back.
Yeah, the end of the day is the case is never truly done until we do our best to get all the funds back. You know what I mean? It's not going to happen in every case. Very unlikely, but we try our best. You know what I mean? We're going to put all our effort into recovering their funds and trying to put them back in a position that from before the scam occurred. But it's challenging to say the least. But we never give up. There's no give up and no giving up in our efforts, and we're constantly working to put an end to it.
Let's help our audience out if we can a little bit. Those that are listening and even watching on our YouTube channel here, the types of scams, kind of going down the list, because people might be surprised that that's actually out there, or they might have already seen something and then it could trigger, hey, wait a minute, maybe I'm on the beginning stages of being scammed.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a various amounts of scams. Like I said before, it just comes down to separating the victim from their money. You've got check scams, check account fraud scams, where your checks are getting stolen in the mail, wherever that may be. Like you put the check in the mail, or it's getting stolen from your mailbox, it's getting stolen from the post office. You'll never be able to tell, you know what I mean, on those circumstances. But scammers are getting check numbers, your account numbers, and a lot of times they're not even. They just change the pay to person, you know what I mean, and they change it to their name and deposit. They don't change the amount. So when you're paying, you send a bill out in the mail to pay one of your bills, and you just know that the check cleared, and you're like, oh, I'm good. And then a month or two later, that company's calling you and say, hey, we never got your payment, because this scammer had deposited into their account, you know what I mean? So, but a lot of times they don't. A lot of times they will change it though. You know what I mean? So they change it. They change a $800 check into an $8,000 check, and if the money's in the account, it's gone.
And sometimes the bank will catch it.
Sometimes the bank will catch it, but it's depending on that to occur if it's going to be caught. You know what I mean? But the end of the day on that is you should never put your checks in the mail. I mean, I don't. In a day and age where we're at, I don't see a reason for paying with checks. It's
just too much important information, a routing number, an account number.
Correct.
But once again, seniors like to pay with checks.
Yeah.
That's what they know. That's what they're more comfortable with. So our best advice to them is to take it straight to the post office. Don't leave it in a mailbox. I mean, you're still always taking a risk. We don't know what's going on at the other end, right? Mm-hmm. But that's the best advice that we could give you right now is when you put a check in a mailbox. I mean, look what happens just with our Amazon packages, mm-hmm. right? They're being stolen daily by these criminals. So they're checking your front porch. They're going to check your mailbox. Whatever they have available to them, whatever they can steal that's going to make them money, that's what they're going to steal. So we got to be careful. And even going back to credit cards, when we talk about locking car doors, and we talked about this during the last podcast, they're going to grab your credit card out of that car, and they're going straight to a store. So they're going to use it before before you have an opportunity to shut it down.
Right.
Right. So you're going to be out thousands of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they do it.
Jason, what would you say has been one of the biggest challenges? I know that's a hard question probably to even answer, because your team is working just case after case after case, and we're trying to communicate with people too to keep them up to date on what's happening.
The biggest challenge is what we're here to do today is just give people the preventative tips on knowing what they can do to protect themselves. So putting themselves in these positions where they're not being vulnerable, they're not leaving their checkbooks in their cars, they're not putting their account information online. Social media is great. Everybody loves social media, but a lot of people overpost. You know what I mean? You post. I mean, you'll be alarmed if you actually look in and you could zoom in on people's pictures, and people are taking pictures and they've got all their bank account information on the table behind them. You know what I mean? And zoom in, you got all this information, social security cards, phone numbers, and so it's just preventative tips on what you can do to put yourself in a better position to not be a victim of scams. It's so hard nowadays. I mean, these scammers are getting so they're just coming up with new things every day. So it's hard to stay up with it, but you just got to be constantly alert, and it's almost like you just gotta second guess everything. You know,
you've got to be suspicious, Sheriff, and we hate that we have to be this way, right?
You can't trust it. You can't trust anyone.
Trust no one, right?
You can't trust any information you're getting from the phone. You know, my wife used to make fun of me just going to the ATM because I look like I'm on a tactical mission. I mean, I'm trying to pay attention to what's going on, right? Around my surroundings. I want to know who's close to me. I want to know if there's someone looking over my shoulder as I'm putting my PIN number in. I mean, you just got to be aware of your surroundings all the time, and you can't trust anything that you get from a message or a phone call. You've got to take the time to ensure that this information is correct. Make a call. Just make a call to us. We would much rather talk to you about how we can eliminate you getting scammed than having to talk to you about a case where you've already been scammed out of several $1,000s.
Yeah, we're never going to be irritated by the deputies.
No, not at all. I
get
this. Right. I get phone calls from victims, either whether it be an active case or someone actually just calls my office and talks to me about, like, hey, what do you think about this? I actually love those phone calls because it's a time for me to speak with the public and kind of go over different elements. You know what I mean? So I've had conversations where someone calls me and like, hey, Sergeant Farrier, what do you think about this? 100% a scam. You know what I mean? And then that communication leads to me opening up their eyes on other different variables that they weren't really thinking about. You know what I mean? So I encourage those phone calls. I'll take those phone calls all day. I like to, even all the cases that we have, I like to have conversations with our victims and kind of talk about things that they can protect themselves moving forward. You know what I mean? So I like to have a checklist of information that I can give them, and then they can refer to for future reference and what they can do after they were already scammed to protect themselves moving forward.
And you'll notice that just from the amount of scam texts that you get or phone calls, it goes in cycles, right? These cell phones, it's like they have a database, you know, because I may go 2 or 3 weeks with constant scam calls on my cell phone, and then there's a lull. Then you won't have any for several weeks, right? And then, but my wife will be getting them on her number. It's like they have this database. I got a scam phone call on my cell phone one time with my cell number. They were using my cell number. So it's amazing how technical they can get. It's also very scary when you think about those that are not really aware of what's going on. Mm-hmm. And we go back to our seniors. They're trusting. They don't know what's happening. All they know is that this person is threatening to put them in jail if they don't pay X amount of dollars. So where do they go? Straight to the bank. And we had a detective You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so actually I had a detective, he was working an off-duty detail. I guess this bank had some issues that they hired an off-duty personnel to be there, so we had one of my detectives signed up for the assignment to go there. And he deals with these scams all the time. He knows how it goes. So basically the scam that I'm referring to is they'll call someone, and it's one of the courier type scams where they'll call them, they'll say that their loved one needs a certain amount of money to bond them out of jail. So they get them to go to the bank. They stay landline with them on the phone. They make them stay on the phone with them the whole time. They give the victim a script. They say, don't say this, say this. If the teller asks you this is what you say. It's all scripted, and they're telling them, they can hear what the teller's saying, so they can tell them how to react and respond. So my detective that was working the detail, he was just there, just being present in the front office. And he's listening to this elderly person at the front counter, and it's a conversation very similar to what he deals with on a daily basis. You know, he actually had an active case with that same situation in his inbox, you know, that he was working with. So like he hears this conversation, and he immediately got involved, and he approached the male and talked to him, and just like expected, he brushed us off, you know what I mean? Because one of their things is law enforcement's going to get involved. Don't talk to law enforcement under any circumstance. So he's brushing him off, not wanting to talk to him, not wanting to cooperate, not wanting to believe anything that's going on. He's trying to get involved. His wife was actually in the car waiting for him, and detective went out to the car to talk to her, and she was not forthcoming. She was telling him to get away from the car, didn't want to cooperate with him. So I mean, it took him a while, but I mean, he was very persistent on getting involved and not letting that money go. You know what I mean? So we were able to reason with them and talk to them, and I think we saved them $30,000. So that was very remarkable. It was very rewarding.
Sure.
For us to do that and get involved on that level. But it just shows you, like, when we do get involved, it's not as easy as just saying, hey, you're being scammed, and that's it. You know what I mean?
They have more trust in that scammer than they do, with us at the time. Yeah. But you have to, but these scammers they're preying upon the fact that a family member's in jail, right? So it's all this emotion. He or she needs this money to get out of jail. That's all they're focused on. I gotta get my loved one, I gotta get my baby out of jail. And the whole time, they're just being scammed. They don't even know until it's too late.
We have a video on our social platforms too. One of our crime prevention deputies, and those guys are out in the community every day, and they talk about the scams and all the other crime prevention tips. And he was in a convenience store. Go check that out. It's on our social platforms. And somebody was being scammed on the phone, and he overhears them. And it was one of those imposters. Hey, this is the sheriff. And so our deputy, who was a detective for a long time, gets on the phone with him and shut him down. And we used the audio video from that, his body cam, to put that together. And we're pushing that out as much as we can. You guys, throughout this whole agency, we're all saying it every single day. And in this office here, we're trying to get that message out there. To, I guess a good point to make here is go with what you know is trusted. So like, let's say you get that phone call and it's the sheriff's office. Well, hang up. Why don't you call us back? 747-3011. You're going to get us. Hopefully you're not going to get the scammer, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you just want to constantly be aware of that. The urgency and pressure is one of the biggest tactics that they use. You know what I mean? You just always want to be aware of that. They're going to immediately put you in that state of pressure to try to make you make a quick decision. You know what I mean? And just remember on a lot of different things with these romance scams, the investment scams, if it's too good to be true, if they're offering you something it just sounds too good. I mean, it's probably too good. It's just too good. It is. That's what it is. So just take a step back and think about it. There's different payment methods. Like they want you to pay in gift cards. Like it's ridiculous. You know what I mean? You're not going to pay any legitimate company or business or anything with gift cards. We're not.
But see, but
Or crypto.
gift cards are not trackable.
Yeah.
Right. So as soon as they get those gift cards, I mean, you know, our case is basically ended. Not going to be able to go so. We can only go so far. We're not going to be able to track. We can track financial statements. We can track, you know, different, you know, credit card transactions, but gift cards, and go to CVS or go to Walgreens or wherever and buy gift cards, and boom. It's difficult for us to continue. Our guys have, in my opinion, done some incredible work and made arrests that not even I thought was possible. Because they're tenacious. They just stay on the case, and you know, like Jason said earlier, these criminals are not in the United States of America. They are in countries, you know, far away from here. What countries do you think are the most prevalent when you are dealing with criminals? Where do you think that they're stationed?
I don't think there's any one country that's any more prevalent than
we
the
used
other.
to get a lot from Nigeria.
Yeah, that was the primary
back
one,
in the day, right?
But there's it's just so broad. You know what I mean? It's everywhere, and but they mess up. Everybody messes up sometimes. You know what I mean? So we look for opportunities where we can jump on those things. But the thing is to keep in mind is that they are out of the country, but they're using us.
There's always a middleman.
There's always a middleman.
Right.
There's layers to it, and they're using us in the United States to help them, and they're getting us to take the fall for them. You know what I mean? They may lose out of a couple $100,000 here or there, or some money on this transaction, that transaction, but end of the day, they're getting a big sum of money. So on our courier scams, like the bank situation. So basically, the ending of that case is what they're trying to do is they get the money, and then the elderly person will bring it home, and the scammer will get a courier service to come pick up the money, and it's either an Uber, Lyft, or something like that. And a lot of times they have no idea what they're even involved in. You know what I mean?
Right.
So they're picking up a package, delivering it somewhere, and it could be an abandoned place, or it could be a residence that someone lives there, and they're part of the scam. You know what I mean? They could be the person receiving that money could very well be someone who's on the phone with a scammer and being threatened or extorted, and they're saying, hey, someone's going to deliver this money, you need to do this with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just there's just too many layers to it. You know what I mean? And people getting involved. And
There's a lot, and the problem, you know, I always go back to our seniors, because most of our elderly population are here because they want to be in Florida, they want to be in the sun, but their families live in other states, so they don't have a lot of contact with them, you know, weekly like we do with our family that are here. So they have no one to rely on. They have no family member checking on them constantly. And as Jason pointed out, it only takes one call, about an hour, and you're out, you know, thousands of dollars. So as family members, we got to really make sure that our parents and grandparents are being taken care of, and that are aware of these scams going on.
yeah, you got to check on them. And the thing is that a lot of times, just like these scammers, what I talked about, this scenario where they're not cooperative with law enforcement. Well, they're not cooperative with family either. You know what I mean?
Right.
So you just want to have those conversations, and a lot of times that when they are getting scammed, well, they don't want to. They're embarrassed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they don't want to admit that. And it scares me that the as much fraud as we do have, it scares me to know that how much fraud there additional that we don't know about because people aren't reporting it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely,
they're not reporting
right.
it because they're embarrassed. They don't want to have to tell their daughters, sons that they've lost all their money in a scam. You know what I mean? They don't want to have that conversation.
And we
so
haven't
they
even
just avoid
talked.
it.
Yeah, we haven't even talked about contractor scams with our seniors, and that's huge too. And a lot of times we don't get information about that. They don't report them. But you know, you just got criminals riding around different communities, getting out and making contact with one of our seniors. Hey, your roof looks like it needs some work.
Right.
And that's big. That's big after any storm that we have. You know,
Right.
you got to be aware of all that kind of stuff, because after storms they'll come and they'll say, hey, I need you got this wrong with your roof, or this is wrong with your fence, and you just got to be aware of that stuff. To take their business cards, do your research. A lot of these guys don't have licenses. You know, there's areas. MyFloridaLicense.com, you can verify that information. So when you have the contractor cases where someone's trying to give you work, don't sign anything right then and there. Do your research. Know who you're hiring when it comes to that kind of stuff. They'll try to get you to pay cash quick. They'll try to get you to pay up front. They'll try to get you to sign like blank contracts with incomplete information, and then they'll fill it in on the back end. So that opens up a whole nother side of things where that stuff is local. You know what I mean? Your contractor. So they're coming in and they're trying to underbid jobs, and they're trying to get you to sign up to get this work done. And you just got to be aware of all that kind of stuff and have it up at the top of your mind.
They're phishing.
Yeah.
The scammers, and we know there's so many of them out there. So they're making contact with people. We're only hearing about necessarily the ones that have fallen for it or have reached out to us to let us know about it. So we know that there's thousands just here in Manatee County that are probably being targeted every day. Maybe they're smart enough to hang up the phone. Maybe they're smart enough to delete that email, or they don't go to that site. You see that somebody's saying you had fraud. They're using fraud, the fear of fraud, to try to get your personal information, whatever it is. So that's why this has been just a really good overview. Specifically, we can get into just about every one of these scams and why we encourage people to reach out to us, and we're trying to get as much of this information out there. The best source is just to go to our website, because it's a great landing spot for a detailed breakdown on just about every scam. And as we get new ones, we're adding it. And again, a huge shout out to our crime prevention guys that are getting out in the community and talking about it every single day. And we're trying to do that on our social platforms and through the media. So continue to look at that. If you have more questions, because you're going to hear this podcast, like, well, you mentioned this, but I want to know more. We will try to get as much of that information there so you can read about it.
Yeah, and we spent a lot of this time talking about elderly, and it's very important. But I don't want to not include our younger population. Mm-hmm. So our younger population, they grew up on cell phones and the internet, so they're also susceptible to scams. It's a lot easier for them. They see these things pop up on their phones, and they get everybody's in different financial situations, but they deal with it more. They grew up on those cellular phones, and they're dealing with pop-up messages and things like that. So they're just as susceptible as the elderly. The elderlies may not have these communication devices, but the younger population, they do, and it's easier for them to just nonchalantly click on something. You know what I mean? So you get these you're just there, and you get this text message, and you want to see what your curiosity is like. Oh, what is this? And you click on the link, and then it just spirals out of control. So that's just something for that population to think about, as well, as far as understanding that they're on their phones more. So if you're on that device more, you're going to see more pop-ups and things like that. And
that's good advice.
Yeah,
that's
one recommendation that I can have is, like, another thing is, a lot of people, they want to catch the bad guy. So everybody wants to play detective, and they want to catch the bad guy. Well, we see a lot of people talking and continuing communication with the scammer, thinking they're gonna catch them, and they end up in that conversation nonchalantly giving up information that they shouldn't. You know what I mean? Trying to get this guy. So they're trying to continue the conversation, and then they ended up being victim as well. You know what I mean? And you've mentioned the phone calls that you're constantly receiving. Well, when you get these phone calls, you don't want to answer them. Just block them right away, because as soon as you answer them, they know that it's an active phone, so they're going to continue calling. And then if you are a victim of a scam from one of these guys, now they're going to take your number, and they're going to sell it to other scammers and say, hey, listen, I got a positive outcome from this one. I got $80,000 from this victim, and they're going to sell your number. So it's a never-ending game, and so you just got to be aware of all this kind of stuff.
And the multiple people that are involved, more than we'll ever know.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Absolutely.
Right. great information, Sergeant.
It's a criminal
that's great.
enterprise. That's what it is. Bottom line, you got to call us. You get a phone call from a scammer. You're not sure. You call us immediately, and let us tell you if this is legit. But once again, no one's going to call you and tell you we got a warrant for your arrest. And if you don't pay us $500, we're going to pick you up. If we have a warrant for your arrest, we're picking you up. You won't know it.
Know that.
You're just going to hear that knock on your door.
Yeah. We're not giving you a heads up. Hey, we're coming by, right? So if you're in doubt and you think you're being played by a scammer, but you're not really sure, just call us.
Yeah, there's always time. There's always time to check it out, and that's what we want to encourage people to do. Very well said, Sheriff, Sergeant. Thanks, man. Keep up the good work.
Absolutely.
I can only imagine, because these things are so complex, folks. There are so, like you said it, there's so many layers to it.
Yeah.
And they're finding new wrinkles every day to make it a little bit more believable. So we're going to do our best here at the Manatee County Sheriff's Office. Sheriff, that's a promise to get the word out, to let people know, hey, don't fall for this stuff. Go to our sources that we have for you to look at, our social platforms, our website. We're going to put out alerts whenever we learn about a new scam, and we want to keep our residents safe and really share it with everybody that you know. Don't fall for this stuff. There is a way to not be a victim.
Yeah, we're gonna get better by the community sharing information with us. So if you receive one of these phone calls or you identify the scam and you don't become a victim, I still want to know about it. You know what I mean? Tell me about it. It's just a phone call. You know what I mean? Call the sheriff's office and talk to Sergeant Farrier and be like, hey, listen, I wasn't a victim of this, but this is something new that came across my desk. Our crime prevention guys, they're out there talking to people constantly, so I have good communication with them, and they routinely come and bring me stuff and that they're provided. You know what I mean? I was just the other day, one of our guys reached out to me and told me about this email that one of their guys received, and about they're trying to extort them for money on an email. So I encourage that information. I like to be updated on everything new. I don't know everything, so I want to be provided all the information so that way we can investigate these cases properly.
That's great. It's great. Sheriff, final thoughts?
Hey, good stuff, Jason. Once again, he's very important with the goal that we have to take care of citizens of Manatee County. And it's not a glamorous job. You're not going to hear about Jason Farrier out there, putting handcuffs on a lot of people. But the work that he does is so important. And his entire squad of detectives have the heart for it. And you've got to be a detective that's willing to put in the hours to solve these cases. And I'm so blessed that we have those type of people working here. So appreciate you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Sergeant. Good information for our second episode of the Well Said podcast. Thanks to everyone who reached out to us and let us know that they're listening. We're on all the platforms. We appreciate the feedback. It's been very positive. For Sheriff Rick Wells and our guest, Sergeant
Thanks for having me.
Jason Farrier, I'm Randy Warren. We'll talk to you next time.